On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Sidney Powell's a rock star. Rudy Giuliani's a rock star, even though he bleeds like hair product or whatever that's darkening stuff. Whatever. I'm not even going to care. This poor guy, he's like 100,000 years old. And yeah, so he uses some Grecian formula or whatever the hell. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's probably spray on. Make it easy. Come on now. That being said, this is going to change the game. Sidney Powell's got some information. She did an awesome interview. I got chopped up some bits of it that are just dynamite. We're going to get into that. I also want to give you guys a little hint. So there was a piece of software that they had some, I forget who was working on it. It was a little while back. I think it was Facebook and some others. And they worked with DARPA. And it was an AI software that was used to try to identify these trends that are positive for the right, positive for Trump. And they'd take these trends and they'd figure out what the talking point was. And then they'd create a counter talking point. And this AI would help them evolve it, help them find it, all this stuff, right? It was a really cool bit of work that they'd done. Well, I'm going to give you a hint at how that works and how you can spot what the truth is. One thing that's really funny about the truth is it's the thing they fight. When they come after something full force, when they shut something down, such as the 17th letter of the alphabet, when they shut down the Sesame Street on the 17th letter of the alphabet, you know that something very interesting is going on around that. Sure, they call it this, they call it that, and they call it other things. The fact of the matter is, they've got to shut it down. So whatever they start focusing their laser beams on, they're like the dude, you get the one red eye and it shoots out. I can't even, Marvel Comics, it's drawing a blank, whatever. But it's like whatever they're shooting their laser at is the truth. It's the thing they're freaked out about. So as we keep hearing counter stories that are coming around all of the awesome stuff that she's counter storing, and yes, it could be said either way, and I'm happy to admit that. And I'm happy to wait until this goes to court. How about you, person on the left? Are you okay letting this go to court? Because I am. How do you feel about it? And again, that's one of the other fun sides of this. How do you know what the truth is? Now, again, I've got some awesome interview stuff here, and I'm going to go ahead and get this fired off over here. And ultimately, what it comes down to is we've got the first part is she talks about the overvote. Now, this, again, is proof. This is evidence. This is a lot of the things that people have been asking for, Tucker Carlson and everything else. But this is going to go before a judge. She's not going to give the evidence over videos, over the news. That's not how it works. I know you're used to that from so many years of the deep state doing things that way because it's all been about programming and getting the public used to a concept. But here we are kind of doing the counter-insurgency, if you will. And in order for that to work, you have to actually figure out what they're doing because they kind of have control of the airwaves. So overvote is some key evidence, a lot of evidence that suggests there's some shenanigans or some weird invalid votes that they want to kind of look into. And so let's see what she's got to say about that.
First of all, the question of overvotes and over ballots. This has been something that's been so maddening for so many people when they see precincts, mostly in cities like Milwaukee and Detroit, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and they see precincts where they had 200 to 300% turnout. Has your investigations at this point been able to come up with a clear answer as to what exactly happened there?
Well, it's probably attributable to fraudulent mail-in ballots or computer alterations of the vote. Either one is distinctly possible. And, of course, we have a lot of dead people voting, but that's not what my case is really based on. That's certainly one of the issues that indicates a scheme to defraud the people of their legal votes.
Yeah.
Because people had to go out and affirmatively fill in ballots for people that they knew were dead and then file them. And each of those is a federal crime punishable by 5 years in prison, if I recall correctly.
And that's the thing. I mean, there is a lot of evidence of all these false votes that somehow occurred. Now, whether this is normal, which I think is one of the big questions that a lot of people are asking, is this something that's been going on for a number of years? Yeah, that might be what we're going to find out through all of this. That this is something that's slowly evolved over time, slowly gotten more and more egregious. And we're going to see that. And I think that's what she's so shocked at, and a lot of these people are shocked at, is as they dug into things, suddenly, they couldn't believe what they saw. And again, the servers, it wasn't this interview, and I forget where I heard it, but she acknowledged in some interview somewhere that she believes right now that the good guys got the server from Germany. So good news on that. Now, I want to say the second little clip of this is she's talking about how the evidence for this is coming faster than they know how to deal with it. It's not just that it's coming quickly. It's that there are a lot of patriots out there. There's a lot of people out there that are concerned about what's happening that literally are stepping forward and saying, oh, I saw things too. It's growing. It's a tsunami. It's not even people that necessarily would have voted for Trump. They're people that are concerned about the process. And there's a lot of light shining on this darkness right now, and people are wondering what's going on. So again, she's talking about how things are coming in faster. Let's check it out.
Larry, the information is coming in at a faster rate than our little team of lawyers can even process it. Yeah. Americans are fed up with the corruption. They are starting to report it and come forward and give evidence. And we've got videos now. All kinds of different things are falling into our hands and being given to us because people trust us to do something about it, while our government has done nothing but either turn a blind eye or deliberately use it to mislead the American people.
And this, again, is one of the things that she and so many are starting to realize. This crazy thing that we've been talking about, this deep state, that's the name we've given it. I don't know what it is. It's an organization. I mean, Kennedy talked about it. Eisenhower talked about it. There's a number of presidents that have been talking about the military-industrial complex and this secret people, this force of, right, whatever. And then on top of that, now we've got this technocracy thing, right? Or this corporatocracy is probably better. But we've got this world now where ultra elite, ultra wealthy people that are like the tippy top of companies are in a lot of cases using their power to manipulate, change, censor, all sorts of things. This is a crazy, they keep saying Orwellian. Basically, I mean, this really is like 1984 and, Brave New World and all this stuff mixed in together. And it is. It's a very wild time that we're experiencing. So the next thing they talk about is how I know this software is capable of doing this stuff, but how do you prove it, right? And that's really the one that Tucker Carlson was going after. I want some proof of this digital voting craziness, right? Like, give me some evidence. And first off, again, if by chance the white hats, good people, good guys, got a hold of the server in Germany, awesome. Well, that's top secret. It's a CIA server. So guess what, Joe Public? We're not going to hear it. We're not going to hear about what exactly was on there. We're not. And Trump's not going to come in and wave his magic wand so all of us can see it. Dude, this is a CIA server. There's no way that's happening. God knows what craziness is on there. But there is evidence that will get in front of the Supreme Court judges and all the people where it matters. And once they're able to demonstrate all of the craziness, it will be very easy for the Supreme Court to rule and say, oh yeah, no question about it. Major shenanigans. I don't even know if that's a legal term. I'm sure it is. But major shenanigans are being on the forefront. So let's hear how she talks about this.
I recognize that the software is capable of being accessed that way. Again, my question is, how does one prove that that's what happened in this case?
Well, there are devices on the internet that can be used to see it. And we have multiple people who actually saw it as it was happening. And so we essentially have some pictures of it. Okay. And it is terrifying, and it is a huge national security issue. Why the Department of Justice and the FBI have not done something on this immediately is beyond my comprehension. Dominion is closing its offices and moving. No doubt they're shredding documents and God only knows what else. More than 100 Dominion people have wiped any connection with Dominion off the internet. They're taking down prior articles about them. Carolyn Maloney, I think it was, wrote a letter to the Secretary of the Treasury or some government official back in 2013, I think it was, complaining about this and raising questions about it and suggesting and saying it was foreign owned and shouldn't be approved. Yeah. Well, all they did was create a shell company in the United States, but they're completely intertwined. They share office space with one of George Soros's groups. His number 2 man heads up the operation out of England, but the money for it was all funded from Venezuela and Cuba and communists, and they did it we've got an eyewitness to all of it who's
Okay.
given a sworn affidavit that he saw it all done, and the purpose it was done for was to rig elections.
And again, that's the thing. We've got sworn affidavits from people that were involved. There's this long history, and they always say, follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. The money is definitely leading us to what's going on. And so, yes, although a lot of us want the evidence thrown in front of us, that's not how this is going to play out. This will play out legally. For all of the people out there that are saying, nothing's happening, again, that's the media that's fighting against this narrative that's going to defeat them. From what we've heard, and I still agree, nothing can stop this because as it's moving now, no matter what, this is going to get before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is laid out right now to be constitutional and to be fair. And they are not going to let this coup or maybe this is the counter coup where we take the government back. I don't know. But ultimately, this government will be by the people, for the people. It will be we the people that govern our United States. It will no longer be this group, this nefarious whoever, the thuggery that they exist. The deep state's what I call them. It's just an easy nickname. That being said, there's some serious proof that's going to be coming out, as she would say. And this lady, who is, one, a lawyer, and Giuliani, too, these people know they can't just slander companies. You can't just go out and say, blah, 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 this company's horrible, blah, and that's called slander, and you can actually get majorly sued for that. And in her case, there's definitely been some threats. We'll talk about that in a little bit of a future go here, but this particular one, she's putting her credentials on the line in a number of places. And that is one thing that I think stands out right now. This individual with impeccable character helped George Flynn, got that whole thing turned around, got George Flynn to be able to rescind his guilty plea. And she was able to turn that around. I mean, minus the fact that a judge is illegally holding the case in suspension, whatever, like never been done before either. Hey, welcome to 2020. Of the year of never been done before. How many never been done befores have you said this year? Seriously, right? Think about it. It's ridiculous. That being said, so some serious proof. Her cred's on the lines. Check it out.
We do have questions with regard to the computer system and whether there is a paper backup. So in other words, if there is a access via the software where they can just manipulate and make votes appear, at some point, there needs to be a ballot to back that up, just in case there is an audit process, right? Is that part of your argument as well?
That is, we have pictures of bags of paper ballots being trashed. We have evidence of shredders running to cover paper ballots. We have testimony of a witness who saw ballots from military people opened, and if they were for Trump, they were thrown out, and a substitute ballot was put in for Biden.
Wow. And these are all people who are swearing under oath with their names. I mean, because God knows they are going to be attacked mercilessly.
Exactly, and that's one reason why we haven't made these specific affidavits public, because some of them, just by what they say, you can identify who the person was. But, you know, I'm essentially staking my personal and professional reputation on these allegations, and I have no hesitation from what I've seen in doing so. In fact, I think it would be irresponsible, if not criminal, of me not to come forward with it.
So, again, she has evidence, and they can't just share this with the news. Think of how people have been doxxed. So again, they're being responsible with this legitimacy. They are truly going to help legitimize our future elections. Because of the shenanigans that have happened, we are going to be able to put in place ways to stop that. I think a lot had been done. I think that's why they caught what's happened. But obviously we've got software with gigantic Swiss cheese size holes in it. So it's time to maybe do something about that. Now, one thing that's really important on this next segment is how there is a pay-to-play concept. And I swear, every time I think of this, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but Lindsey Graham keeps popping into my head. I think this guy bought his Senate seat. Hey, whatever, more power to you. I'm pretty sure he's going to vote Republican groovy. But here's the thing, folks. Republicans and Democrats are guilty of using this type of software, apparently, and we're hearing about this, over the last number of elections. We don't know how many. I think that information is going to come out. How much of that we ever know personally, again, I don't know how much is going to get to us. Hopefully a lot. We'll see. But pay to play was a big part of it. And then on top of that, this was supposedly used against Bernie Sanders, of all people. Bernie Sanders in California, I guess, to get the primary. And they basically shut him down, and he accepted it. And then, sure enough, I bet he sold another 1 million books or whatever the heck. Well, let's hear what she's got to say about this.
And I'm paraphrasing, but you basically said this system was set up in a way where whoever was willing to pay the right amount, they'd get the election results that they're looking for. And that was a nonpartisan statement. So
exactly, the Republicans are as much at fault of this as the Democrats. There's no telling who we have elected, thought we elected, that we didn't elect at all, that bought the machinations in more ways than one to put themselves in office. And I guarantee it crosses party lines, because for some reason the Republicans have opposed any sort of investigation of these systems for the last several years. Previously it was the Democrats complaining about it.
I'm hearing,
and to Maloney, Amy Klobuchar,
yep.
Senator Warren were all over it, but now it's the first time. It's not the first time. Actually, I've got massive data from the 2016 election in California that we haven't even had the resources to get crunched yet. But the person who did it told me that was used. The machine was used then to deprive Bernie Sanders of the election in California, that he would have won or might have won the California primary, and Hillary Clinton used it to screw him out of that. And these people even told Bernie about it, and instead of doing anything about it, he sold out.
Now, I'm sorry if I misled you, because I was actually thinking it was the primary for this election that we had, whenever the hell it was, the primary in 2019. But it was the one in 2016, and of course Hillary. No big surprise that she was the one that was using it against him. Now, another thing that's really been a big deal is Sidney has had specifically lawsuit. Like I said, she's put her reputation on the line. She can't just come out and say, oh, Smartmatic is a horrible company. Dude, Smartmatic will sue her if she's saying things that are incorrect, especially on a national stage like this. So interesting how that's going to play out, and check out how she feels about, Smartmatic threatening to sue her for libel or making stuff up.
There's been some suggestion in the media. I don't blame you if you ignore the media, so I'll pass on some of the things that are being said. But there's some suggestion.
Yes, I pay no attention to anything anybody is saying about me.
There's some suggestion that's Dominion and the software company. It's not Select. I'm sorry. Help me out with the
Smartmatic.
Thank you. That they might sue you for the allegations you made yesterday, and I'm wondering what your response would be. I'm guessing you'd welcome that, because that would bring on discovery of these things.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to have full discovery, because right now we're limited to what we can do in the election contest, and that doesn't include discovery. But, yeah, I'd love to have civil discovery of everything about Dominion and Smartmatic and Lord Malik Brown, the Soros guy, and the Venezuelan people that put this together and sold it all over the world, and Mr. Eric Coomers, who's on video saying he had the election rigged with a Black Lives Matter or Antifa group, bragging about how he'd had it fixed for Biden. Nobody had to worry about it. Yeah, give me civil discovery. I'll take that any day.
And again, that's the thing. It's like, please sue me. But this is the way the media works. They throw the bomb out there like, ooh, we're going to sue her. And everybody's like, obviously it's not true. No, lawsuits happen all the time, and they fail sometimes. Remember Stormy Daniels with Trump. That one failed. They threw god-awful sums of money at that, and that one failed. And in fact, if I remember correctly, she had to pay Trump's legal fees on top of that. That's how badly they lost. So, again, just because someone throws a lawyer at something and says, oh, I'm going to sue you, it's like, all right, bring it. Because that means they get discovery. Discovery means they get to look into all sorts of stuff. They get to request information, servers, emails, all sorts of stuff. These guys aren't going to sue. Are you kidding? They wish. And I don't mean these guys like Rudiani and Powell. They're definitely suing. But I mean Smartmatic, and please, I dare you, I double dog dare, I triple dog dare you, Smartmatic, to sue Sidney Powell. It sounds like she wants to see it. I'd like to, because frankly, all I'm interested in is the truth. I know below it says the AP already announced that the election was given to Joe Biden, but unfortunately, the media does not call elections as much as they might like to think they do. And there's a huge legal process that is going to continue to go on. And one of the things that she gets into next in this particular interview is what is coming. And it sounds like Monday, for sure, and I've been saying this for a couple days now, it sounds like Monday's probably got some interesting stuff in store, certainly next week. But she kind of talks about what's coming up over the short period of time.
There is a timeline here, and there is a real major deadline coming up here constitutionally with regard to the Electoral College. Can you sort of lay out what you expect to happen over the course of the next 2 weeks?
Well, I think over the next 2 weeks, we will get a fraud complaint filed that makes people's jaws hit the floor. I really think we can get at least the initial outline of the whole plan put together and documented by then. Evidence is going to continue to come in. What I remain just absolutely appalled about is the failure of the government to seize the Dominion machines in every state, every place. And it's not just the Dominion machines, Larry. The same DNA code of the corrupt system is in other voting machines around the country, too, owned by other companies. Whether they know it or not, I don't know, but I can't imagine they don't.
So again, more information that's kind of hinted at us that this software, this hacking software, potentially, I'm going to call it that. It's not really hacking, but if it's malware, probably is a better term for it. But this potential malware might very well be on the other voting machines that aren't Smartmatic and aren't of this other Scythe, whatever the heck they are, right? I can't say it. Skittle? I don't remember their name. Taste the Rainbow, whatever the hell that company's name is in Spain. Now, another thing that's brought up, and it's good to point out because she's making the point about the software already having the glitch built in with the malware. They're talking about this runoff in Georgia. We'll do a runoff, and all these people are, quote, going to move down to Georgia so they can vote in the runoff. Da, da, da. Here's the thing, folks, and she talks about it. Do we trust the software that they're using right now? I mean, that's what this whole lawsuit's about. So are you saying, hey, if we recount the same crap fake votes, we're not going to get the same answer? Or if we use the same jacked software, are we not going to get the same votes? I'm going to show you, too, the numbers right after this little break here. And it's going to kind of trip you out a little bit because it'll just, people say, oh, what's just a couple percent? Well, let me show you what the algorithm was, and just using an Excel spreadsheet and a couple formulas, I'm going to demonstrate how big those numbers can get over a population growth, depending on how many people are in there. But that being said, what about the runoff in Georgia? Big question I think a lot of people really want a good answer to.
There's been some concern here over the idea that this action that you're taking is going to demoralize voters, demoralize Republican voters, turn off Republican voters. It will affect the turnout for the Georgia runoffs that are coming, and that people
there
are going...
There shouldn't be a Georgia runoff with these machines. There should be an injunction issued or a court order issued to stop the Georgia runoff. They cannot rely on these machines. In no way, shape, or form.
The recount was just certified. The people of Georgia, the Secretary of State there claims, listen, we looked at it all, we audited it all, and the paper ballots matched what the computers said. How do you respond?
That's a lie. Well, it might have. I mean, you can rerun the same corrupted ballots through a machine and come out with the same thing.
Yeah.
That really doesn't prove anything. The machine can override review of signatures. It can override review of the top part of the ballot or one particular candidate. They can program it to do anything you can program a computer to do. And that's what they've done. Not to mention the Secretary of State of Georgia and the governor of Georgia rushed to give a $100 million contract to Dominion, I think in 2019, which is not that long ago, before elections started. And that was a $100 million system. We have one lawyer that has told me that they got essentially kickbacks and benefits for their families from doing that, not to mention what I would call election insurance, knowing that they would be elected or reelected in the process. And it's got to be criminally investigated.
Yeah.
Every bit of it in every state.
There's one thing that
we've got to have a ballot system that the American people can trust. We're supposed to be a republic.
And again, that's the thing. We're supposed to be able to trust the voting system. And though there are a lot of people that wish that that Biden is elected, or at least that Donald Trump's not in office, and I get we've got a problem there. We've ultimately got to get these people on board, by the way. But that's kind of like phase 2. Right now, phase one is let's get through the fact that someone tried to steal an election. We're hoping to gosh that we've got these individuals that are helping us, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, just to name a few. Trump has been helping, supposedly putting all these things in place, foreseeing what's coming in his 4D chess brain. And then on top of that, surrounding himself with 5-6 solid people that he knows he can trust. Now, just to talk to the numbers here real quick. So number of votes, right? If there's 100,000 votes, and this was one of the things they talked about, just one of the algorithms, where every Trump vote became a 73% Trump, 27% Biden, right? Which meant that every like not 100% of all the Trump votes would stay with Trump. And they figured using this algo of 73-27, just giving 27% of those votes to Biden, that they would be fine, that there would be no big deal. And that was one of the things that was talked about. And she will mention this in this final thing. And that's why I'm using the numbers right now to kind of paint that picture. But understand, if there's 100,000 votes and 73% of them only go to Trump, that means Trump got 73%. That means 27% or 2,700, 73,000 went to Trump. 27,000 end up going to Biden. Well, when you get down into 2 million votes, which Georgia and some of these other larger cities and metropolises have done, you've got 1.4 million of those going to Trump and 540,000 picking up to Biden. Now, what's funny about this particular algorithm, which just on its face is like, man, that's unfair. Totally. I'm 100%. But oddly, it wasn't unfair enough. That's the thing that she talks about in this final little piece. They talk about why even bother manipulating this from a software standpoint when you know you can just do it through votes. And here's what she says talking about that basic question and knowing these numbers. Kind of put that equation into your head when you're listening to her.
If they're able to access this software from the back door and manipulate the numbers, and then they produce the ballots later to sort of back up the software manipulation, if they can produce those ballots, why bother manipulating the software? You know what I mean? I mean, if they can just produce 100,000 ballots, can't they just do that and then scan them? They don't have to access the software. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but to keep the voting going in real time the way that they've been doing it, they have to do it electronically. And the reason they shut the machines down was, what was it, 5 states that all of a sudden stopped counting?
Right,
It's never
right.
happened in the history of elections.
I remember covering it live on the air, thinking, "Why is everything stopped? What's happening here in these states?"
Exactly. Yeah. Well, what stopped was Trump voters essentially broke the algorithm. They'd already figured out the algorithm they thought they needed to make sure Biden won. And so they ran that probably across the country. I don't know that for sure. That's an educated supposition at this point.
Okay.
Because, they wanted to make sure he got the vote. But what happened was there were so many more Trump votes than the algorithm could compensate for that was already pre-programmed in there. They had to stop the machines for several hours to backfill the additional vote needed to push Biden over in those certain areas in the swing states.
So again, what she's saying is by them stealing 27% of the vote from Trump directly and flopping votes, possibly allegedly, that was still not enough to make up for how many Trump people were coming in voting for Trump and how many weren't voting for Biden the way they thought, or how many of the Biden votes weren't coming in like they thought. So they had to, in 5 states, Powell's saying, and we'll see the proof get presented, or we will never see it, and it will get presented to the right people, and they'll make decisions. But we're seeing that it sounds like a lot of craziness was done with these electronic votes. They had to do that because their algorithm was not good enough. They had to literally intercede live. And in fact, it seemed from some of the screenshots that people had shared where suddenly there was a flip, of a 20,000 vote flip from one person to the other, and they showed it live on CNN, 2 screenshots just minutes apart. You don't see that normally. And these kinds of things don't normally happen. So is there evidence? There seems to be a lot. Do I have the proof myself? No. Is the proof going to be shown to us before any of this stuff is presented in a court? Frankly, I hope not. I really, frankly, hope not. I don't think the proof should be. It needs to be done in front of the courts. I want to make sure the courts see this and do it. I don't want public opinion. I don't want the deep state to know what to counter narrative. Like, no, I'm fine with a little bit of a blackout on this because I think ultimately we definitely have the right people working on it. We've got some major booms coming. Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Trump's been in place. He's got the right people. Eventually, Flynn's been obviously talking to Sidney Powell, his lawyer, and no one could ever try to get that information from her, right? That client privilege, lawyer-client privilege, whatever, right? So there's a lot of information that's probably been filtered because now she's, the circles work. And that being said, I think we've got all the right people in place. I think there was craziness that happened. I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that there's questions about how this vote process happened. There's questions about the software. There's questions about who was in such a rush to buy the software, how much they paid for it. There's questions about some other races and possibly Republicans even, who knows, that might have cheated their way in. I want the truth to come out. And I think that's what ultimately helps all of us, is to find out what's really going on. And let's make sure these votes, these elections from here on out, from this year forward, are actually we the people, for the people, by the people. And if we can pull that off, then we've actually accomplished a great deal. And I think that's what we're all trying to do right now, including Mr. Trump. I think we've got some financial woes that the United States needs to deal with, maybe a bankruptcy, who knows. We'll leave that for the next 4 years. But for right now, this is where we're at. And remember, most importantly, where we go one, we go all. It's On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.